You remember the sound? That soft click, click, click as the dial spun back into place? Before cell phones, before speed dial, and long before video calls, making a call was an event. You'd pick up the receiver, hear that steady dial tone, and with one finger, spin each number, slowly, watching it glide back before starting the next. Back then, phones didn't travel with you. They had their own place in the home, maybe mounted on the kitchen wall, or sitting on a little hallway table with a notepad and pen nearby. And those rotary phones weren't just a way to talk. They were the heartbeat of the house, connecting us to friends, family, and the world beyond. Let's rewind the clock to a time when every call had weight, every ring carried excitement, and the rotary phone ruled America's living rooms. But to understand its magic, we have to go back to where it all began. Our story begins in the early 1900s, just a few decades after Alexander Graham Bell made that first historic call in 1876. America's telephone network was growing fast, but there was one big problem. Every single call had to be connected by a human operator. You'd lift the receiver, hear a voice on the other end, and say, "Connect me to main 453, please." It was personal, sure, but slow. And as more people got phones, the system simply couldn't keep up. Then came the rotary dial. First dreamed up in the late 19th century and perfected in the early 20th, it was a mechanical marvel. No more asking someone to make your call. You could speak directly to the phone system. Each turn of the dial sent a series of electrical pulses, one pulse for a 1, 9 pulses for a 9, telling the system exactly where to send your voice. It was faster, more private, and surprisingly empowering. Now it was just you, the phone, and that deeply satisfying click, click, click as the dial spun back into place. And soon, these rotary phones weren't just clever machines, they became part of the furniture in nearly every American home. By the 1940s and 50s, rotary phones had become as common in American homes as the family dining table. They were sturdy, heavy, and built to last. Crafted from Bakelite in the early years, and later from tough, indestructible plastic. At first, you could get them in any color you wanted, as long as it was black. But as the decades rolled on, the phones began to brighten American living rooms and kitchens with mid-century charm. Avocado green for the kitchen, harvest gold for the living room, or a soft pastel pink that made the perfect accessory for a teenager's bedroom. Most homes kept the phone in a central spot, maybe on a little table in the hallway, or mounted proudly to the kitchen wall. Beside it, there was almost always a notepad and pencil, ready to catch a phone number or message. And remember, there was no caller ID, no voicemail. If you missed the call, you missed it. End of story. For many families, the phone was a shared lifeline. You'd wait patiently for your turn, listening as parents or siblings chatted with friends or relatives. And sometimes, you'd sneak into another room, lift the receiver quietly, and try to eavesdrop, until a sharp, "Hang up that phone," snapped you back to reality. But the rotary phone wasn't just a household object. It shaped how Americans connected, and came with its own set of unwritten social rules. In the age of rotary phones, calling someone wasn't something you did on a whim at any hour. There was an unspoken code of conduct. You didn't interrupt a family during dinner, and you certainly didn't call too late at night unless it was an emergency. A ring after dark could send a chill through the room, because it almost always meant bad news. For teenagers, the rotary phone was a lifeline to their social world, and sometimes a battlefield. They'd stretch the coiled cord to its limit, ducking around corners or into closets for a shred of privacy. Parents, meanwhile, kept a watchful eye on the clock, reminding them long-distance calls cost money. Back then, calling outside your local area wasn't free, and those minutes could pile up fast on the monthly bill. And then there was the art of dialing itself. Each number was a deliberate spin and release, the dial ticking back into place before you could start the next. If you messed up halfway through, no delete button. You had to hang up and start again. Every call took patience, and somehow, that made each one feel more intentional. But as much as America adored the rotary phone, the winds of change were already blowing, and the way people connected was about to transform forever. By the late 1970s and into the 80s, The pace of technology was accelerating. Push-button phones, powered by a new system called touch-tone dialing, promised faster, more reliable connections. Instead of the steady mechanical clicks of a rotary dial, each press produced a quick, musical tone. Calls went through faster, and phone companies actively encouraged the switch, sometimes even charging extra for touch-tone service in the early days. The change wasn't just about speed. Businesses were embracing automated phone menus, where you had to press 1 for this or press 2 for that. A rotary phone simply couldn't play in that new world. Slowly, the familiar round dial vanished from kitchen walls, hallway stands, and office desks across America. By the 1990s, rotary phones had mostly been replaced by lighter, sleeker models, cordless phones that freed you to wander the house while chatting, and eventually mobile phones that would completely rewrite the rules of communication. And yet, even as they slipped out of daily life, rotary phones never truly disappeared. They found a second life as cherished relics, symbols of a simpler, more deliberate era. Today, rotary phones are more than just relics. They're conversation starters, design statements, and, for some, fully functional links to the past. Vintage hunters scour flea markets, estate sales, and online auctions for well-preserved models. Others take on the satisfying task of restoring them, polishing the finish, replacing cords, and even adding modern upgrades so they can plug into today's phone lines or connect via Bluetooth to a smartphone. But for many, it's about more than owning an old phone. It's about holding a piece of living history. The weight in your hand, the rhythmic click as the dial spins back, the bright ring that could fill an entire house. Each detail is a trigger for memories of a slower, more deliberate way of staying connected. And in an age when our phones fit in our pockets, hold our calendars and stream our movies, there's something grounding, almost magical, about a device that did one job and did it beautifully. Maybe that's why, decades after their heyday, rotary phones still live on, not just in attics and thrift stores, but in America's collective memory. From the days when every call began with the slow spin of a dial, to today's world of instant messages and video chats, the rotary phone has traveled a long and fascinating road in America's story. It connected families, carried both joyful news and heartbreaking ones, and, perhaps most importantly, taught us the quiet art of patience in communication. It may no longer sit in our kitchens or hallways, but its legacy still rings clear, a reminder that sometimes simpler really is better. So the next time you spot a rotary phone, whether in an antique shop or tucked away in your grandma's attic, pause for a moment. Give that dial a spin, hear the rhythmic clicks, feel the solid weight in your hand. For just a few seconds, you'll be dialing straight into the past. If you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more forgotten tech stories, and share your own rotary phone memories in the comments. You never know, your story might inspire our next episode.